No, the morning time before midday is always creative. It has also a significance in it. If you see that the sun rises in the east, comes to the meridian in the noon, goes to the west in the sunset, and then goes to the midnight at the bottom, Nadir. It is called Nadir. These are called the 4 syllables of the Lord of the day. This is called the 4-syllabled name of God. That is the tetragram. So the 4 divisions of the day is called the tetragram. And the first part is creative. So you have to use creative time for spiritual purposes. Because spiritualism is creative work. And then the next half is constructive. The third part is consolidative, to make it resistant. The fourth is reconstructive, that is making changes for the better. On the physical plane, it is destruction. Why? Because if you want to make this house better, you have to take some part of it. So on the plane of matter, it is destruction. On the plane of mind, it is change. On the plane of buddhi, it is reconstruction, that is rearrangement. So the time between midnight and sunrise is reconstructive. For the materialistic human beings, it is the period of deep sleep. If you are really healthy, you will have the ideally deep sleep during those hours. But in the case of spiritualist disciples, it is the time for the 4th state of consciousness. You remember the Aquarians type of consciousness we spoke of, Samadhi consciousness. So for some people it is the time of deep sleep. For some people it is time of deep consciousness. That's why in all spiritual practices you are expected to use the time between sunrise and noon. So this is one combination of the mantras of respiration. The same sounds are used in the scriptures. But when the scriptures were translated from language to language, sometimes the sounds were not translated. And sometimes some sounds were translated. For example, you find the Hebrew words. It is not exactly Y, but the sound is between Y and J. It is called the name of the God Jehovah. The original and the oldest is this name, Soham. So you have to make combinations of those sounds and make mantras to meditate 2 months each. You can take the other combination also and make another mantram like this. Saum, Saum, Saum. This is another combination. It can be uttered only like this. Hamso. This mantram is called the bird of life. Bird of life. It is a milk white. It is described as a milk white bird. Swan? Yes, from this the word swan comes. Etymologically, the word swan comes from Hamsa. That's why in the scriptures, the white bird is described as the vehicle of the Creator. The Creator sits on a white bird and comes down to creation. So this is only to give you examples of the siksha or their signs of utterance. We are expected to practice how to utter these things. This branch is also called the science of mantras. Then astrology. All the astrological items from the above keys should be gathered. For example, the time division of 6 hours each should be separately understood. How the day is divided into 4 equal parts having 6 hours each having 90 degrees angle each. The same is to be understood in the month, that is 7 days each of 90 degrees, 28 days. This is the second application. It is called the diurnal cross. This is called the cross of the month. Then you have to understand the cross of the year. The both cardinal points. Aries 0 starting with March 21st, and then Cancer 0, that is June 22nd. That forms the first part of the cross. Then September 21st, that is Libra first point. So this is the second quarter of the cross. And then December 22nd, first point of Capricorn. This forms the third quarter of the cross. And then the remaining is fourth quarter. And then next you have to understand the minute divisions of the day. It is not only the hours and the minutes, but there is the other type of division also. The whole day is divided into 60 equal parts. That is, from sunrise to sunrise, it is divided into 60 equal parts. These parts are called ghatis. Each is divided into 60 equal parts again. So you have the base number 36. The astronomical number for all the calculations of the year and the bigger cycles. The yugas and the Manu's periods and bigger periods. So the next thing to be known is the solilunar calendar. That is, we have what are called the 7 moon phases. For example, in 7 days we have 8 moon phases. So from new moon via full moon again to new moon, we have 30 moon phases in 28 solar days. The solar days are 28, but the moon phases are 30. Just we need not go into the details. We go next year. In each moon phase, we have an angle of 12 degrees between sun and moon. So from new moon up to 12 degrees angle, it is one moon phase. So the next 12 degrees, it is the next second moon phase. Like this, we have the astronomical moon phases, which give us the cycles of the flood of water on this earth. For example, the Noah's flood. Yes, the flood at the time of Noah. So there are periodical floodings on this earth. These moon phases will give us the time key to calculate the periods of flood. Both. Pardon?
The next one is.
We have to wait for a very, very long time. We need not be worried now. We can complete our lessons.
We can.
And the floods of rivers and oceans will be known by this, by using the formula of 30 lunar days or 28 solar days. And the reproductive cycles of the female physical mechanism, they are also called the floods. That is what we call the menstrual cycle. They are between 28 days and 30 days. So we can know the key between the individual cycles and the earth cycle. All these things are given in Blavatsky's commentary to the archaic stanzas. That is what we call the secret doctrine. So this is about the fifth key. Tomorrow we will finish the sixth key and then take an archaic stanza to explain. We were just completing the fifth key called Siksha. Only one more point is there in it. And with that we will finish the fifth key. Siksha. Yes. Every vowel we have seen is said to express in three different lengths: the short, the long and the continuous. I think we have narrated this, is it? And all these three types are produced in two different varieties. One is nasal, the other is pure oral. For example, if you take the sound U, you have short U, long U, and the song U. Just as in the end of a song, a musician goes on singing the sound. And these three are in the form of nasal. That means if you utter this as U, you utter this as like that.
So is this.
With the nose you will utter it. So non-nasal 3 sounds and nasal 3 sounds. And you have it as 3 types again. That is the low tone, the normal tone and the high tone. Mark this under a sound like this. It means it should be uttered in low tone. If you do not mark anything, that means it is the normal tone of your voice. If you mark vertically above the sound, that means you should utter it in your high tone. The normal tone of everyone is taken as standard. Lower to one's own normal tone, lower to one's own normal tone, it is marked as low tone. Higher than one's own normal tone, it is marked as the high tone. So we have 3 into 3, 9, 9 into 3, 27. So each sound is uttered in 27 different denominations. Do not be afraid that you have to utter all the 27 just now. There are no scholars, not many even in India, who know the utterance of all the 27 sounds. There are there, but there are only very few. And in the ashram of the masters, still there are people who utter these sounds scientifically. So, if you utter an archaic stanza from the scriptures, you have these differences of utterance. So, as a third division, we have the low tone. When we mark under a sound in a horizontal way, it should be uttered in a low tone. When nothing is marked, it should be uttered in your normal tone. When a vertical mark is given above this sound, it is to be uttered in your high tone. That is lower than your normal voice, and higher than your normal. So, when we are uttering any one of the mantrams from the Veda or any one of the archaic stanzas of the book of Dhyan, of course not their translations in English, when you want to utter them in their original language, you have to observe these intonations. For example, daily we make the utterance of the mantram Shanno Mitraha. That is an invocation of the consciousness of the teacher and the disciple. That mantram was invoked in the ancient days in every school, in the beginning of the school, that is in the opening of the school in the morning, and at the time of the closing of the school in the evening. If you utter that mantram, you have to observe all these things. For example, we utter, daily, Shanno mitrasyam varunaha, Shanno bhavatvariyama, like that. Shanno means this one, or yama means lower tone. Shanna indro, like that. Bruhaspatihi. So first, we should learn it from a person uttering until we can independently reproduce it with our own voice, and then learn the intonation in the mind. And you can make a notation of the mantram on the paper, but you are strictly prohibited to read looking to the notation, because the notation should be remembered as sound but not on the paper. So he is said to be the worst student. If someone wants a notation on the book to recite it, and there are 4 or 5 types of worst students described here in the science. Those who make the short vowels long, or long vowels into too long, to help him to utter the intonation. He is also called one among the worst students. One who changes the sound to make the intonation, or one who speeds up the utterance of words, utter the intonation. He is called a third type of worst student. And a student who makes his head like this in his attempt to utter these sounds. That is, Shanno mitrasyam varunaha, like that.
So, when there is so marked.
Shanno bhavatvariyama, like that. That is to remember intonation with the movement of the head. Whose head moves with his utterance. He is also called one among the worst students. So these are some of the, and these intonations can be marked in the book to keep the tradition of intonations not going away from our mind. That is to keep the standard of the text. But learning and recital should never be made with the help of a book. That is why in the Sanskrit this is called, that is the science of scriptures is called Shruti, the science of Shruti. In Sanskrit it means from voice to ear. So it should be learnt from voice to ear. The voice of the teacher should lead us and our ear should receive us, and then we should practice uttering it. And when we teach, once again we have to follow the same process. And it should never be learnt or taught through a book. That is what is meant by Shruti. You know the word Kabbalah. What does that mean? What is the meaning of the word Kabbalah? Something through oral tradition. Yes, not through the book. Exactly the same thing is meant by the word Kabbalah. And also in the ancient Arabic language, you find a word called Kaaba. Now the Muslims utter what is called Kaaba.
Jetzt.
What does that mean? It means the word given. The same thing. So it was an universal tradition in the ancient days. This sound is considered to be the first sound to be uttered because it is the first sound of your utterance. That is the sound of inhalation. So there are two basic sounds. one S and the other H. So the name of this tradition starts with the same sound S. You have a language called Senzar. It also starts with the same sound. Now these are the only two languages left in the world whose sound key is not dead from the tradition. All the other languages, including the ancient Hebrew, the tradition of uttering it is almost lost. So we have only the texts of the Old Testament. We don't find people who sing the text. 1/6 of the key is lost. So Blavatsky has taken care of the stanzas in the Senzar language. So the archaic stanzas exist with all the 7 keys now in these two languages, Senzar and Sanskrit. And we should recollect the traditions of other scriptures also. Then
Mit
only
einbeziehen.
we can get the complete idea of what the world scripture is. That is what Jalkol instructed Blavatsky when she was writing her first book, Isis Unveiled. And apart from these two sounds, there is a third sound also in the archaic stanza which is not there in other languages. It is the sound R, which is different from the sound we utter now. So you have to understand two different sounds of R when you go into the archaic stanzas of any language. You can mark the one like this to differentiate from the one which we use now. Then you can ask how we should utter this. We should not